It's kind of good. I actually can't see anybody, so you know, it's kind of funny when usually me and my wife speak. And listen, I do a lot of public speaking, and I've never gotten used to it. I'm always uncomfortable. I'm always pacing around, but this is real important to me and my wife and everyone here. But usually when we do it, she's greeting everyone at the door and hugging everyone, and I literally hide. And it's funny because I'm either backstage or my hiding spot of choice is on a toilet. Just kind of weird. I find the boys' room, I sit down because no one's going to come in, no one's going to bother me, no one's going to...
My husband.
But let me start first by saying my name's Chris, alcoholic addict, and hello. And I spoke a few years ago I think she had one in a church, and the pictures really hit me hard. Yeah. You know, you can't figure out why, you know, some people get this and some don't. And for me, I'm extremely grateful and humbled to be up here, but you know, kind of in my story, the right people came into my life at exactly the right time, exactly when I needed them, you know. And it's funny because we talk about the stigma, and you know, the sad part for me is I had the stigma until I struggled with addiction. You know, I was kind of sheltered. I grew up in an Irish Catholic, real strict family. You know, went to church and always kind of did the right thing, but like I didn't have it in my family. You know, and it was never talked about. And maybe I had alcoholism, but you know, it took me a long time and a lot of struggling to finally admit, you know, that I'm an alcoholic addict. And it's funny because that's the first thing I tell people about me. You know, I don't tell them anything else about me. I don't care who you are or where we're at. I don't tell you I played in the NFL. I don't tell you anything I did except that I'm an alcoholic and addict. You know, and I'm proud of it. You know, but for me, you know, kind of growing up, I always said, no way, not me. You know, because I had that image in my head. Like, I didn't picture me right now. I didn't picture doctors, lawyers, kids. You know, I kind of had the end image in my head. You know, and I'm so grateful that, you know, I was fortunate enough to find recovery. And, you know, I had a lot of things that kind of went my way in life, you know, and the crazy part is the first time I've ever felt or seen hope in my life, I saw her in the halls of AA and NA, you know, and I've met the most amazing people along the way, you know. But for me, February 3rd, 2002, probably should have been one of the best days of my life. You know, I was a member of the New England Patriots. We just won the Super Bowl, and from the outside, I looked like I had everything going for me, and I was on top of the world. You know, but what people didn't know at the time, and I didn't know at the time, I was an addict and alcoholic. You know, I can still remember it like it was yesterday, and you'll see me fidgeting. This is my sobriety chip. I have it with me at all times. All times. And it's funny because I actually have my Super Bowl ring on. It's on backwards. I've never worn it. I'll put it on just for purposes of carrying it. Listen, I'm proud of it. It means a lot to me, you know, but I think everyone here can attest, like, this means a lot more to me than this Super Bowl ring. And thank you. And I'd give it away. I'd give away the ring tomorrow, honest to God. And you know what's funny? Not funny, but you know, if you ask my mother passed away on my sobriety day 2 years ago, and that was my mother. Of course, she had to kind of steal the thunder of my day a little bit. But it's funny because my family was all about kind of accomplishments, and you got to do this and get here and do this. And this is the thing my mother was most proud of. So, especially the people in here that are in recovery, obviously be proud of it, because for me, thank you. It's funny for me, it's the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. I got the Super Bowl ring by dealing with a lot of physical pain, and I had to put myself through a lot. But to get the sobriety chip and keep it, I had to deal with the emotional pain that I had dealt with my whole life. Majority of my life, insecure, low self-esteem, low self-worth, never comfortable around people. It's kind of a repeating story. I looked like I had everything. I was a quiet kid. I kept to myself. I didn't talk back. I didn't get in trouble. I did the right thing. Blah blah blah. But on the inside, I was hurting. And September 2000 and September 2001. I was in a bar in Rhode Island thinking nothing of it. I had just had wrist surgeries. I started buying pain pills in September 2001. I didn't know what I was signing up for. The team doctor used to give me pain pills after the game, doctors, lawyers, and I didn't realize that decision was going to change my life forever. And that's kind of how my journey began. I got back on the New England Patriots. I won a Super Bowl. And 6 months after taking my first pill, I gave up football. I gave up what I had done for 23 years. And it was a pretty easy decision. I can remember when I took that first pill. I had had surgeries before this. I remember I took that first pill, and it gave me a feeling that I dreamt about my whole life. It still scares me to this day. I was comfortable in my own skin. I wanted to be around people. I felt like someone was giving me a warm hug. And I didn't realize I was going to chase that for the next 8 years. I didn't realize I needed to fix what was going on in here before I'll ever get better. In the next 8 years, as you can imagine, I was fortunate to make it through. But talk about the stigma, when I started my sobriety journey, obviously I went to meetings for everybody else, not myself, because I was different. I never in my life have thought I was better than anyone else, but I was unique. I wasn't like one of them. I can stop whenever I want, and quite honestly, it's the hardest thing I've ever done in my life, but, December 14th, the day before I got sober, 2008, and it's crazy because you never know when someone's going to get this. It was my most hopeless day. I had left a sober house. I had lost everything, the house, the family, millions of dollars, and I was in an apartment in North Marlborough, and at this time I was trying to drink myself to death. And it's crazy because the day before I got sober was as hopeless as I've ever felt in my life, and it's kind of tough to say this in front of people that have lost people, but the one thing I did good, the only good decision I made during that time is I called this guy, Steve, that was friends with my wife, and I hated this guy. Steve was tattooed up. I knew him from meetings. I was roommates with his brother. He had 17 years at the time. He'd yell and scream in meetings. He had tattoos. He was confident. He was everything I wasn't. And I actually don't remember calling him. But it was kind of my introduction to recovery because this guy was coming by my apartment every day, 3 or 4 times a day. Just to make sure I was okay. And I couldn't stand this guy. But he came by December 14th and because there was a car there. And when he walked in my apartment, my mother and father were there, and my mother was a very tough, strict woman, and tough love, and she was standing over my bed bawling, begging God to take my life. And obviously my mother didn't want that. Well, my mother didn't want to watch her son suffer anymore, and December 15th is my sobriety date, and the thing I had struggled with my whole life, right, the emotional, mental, all that, I had a total breakdown, and thank God that day happened. I was in that apartment. I couldn't afford anything. I had heat. It was freezing, but I cried for 4 hours. And I don't know. I tried to get in the church next door. I have a very, very strong faith now. I always had a faith. And the church was was locked, so I came back, and I remember sitting on my couch crying, just begging God, please, I don't want to deal with this mental obsession. I don't want to hurt anybody anymore. It's like I'm the last person, what I mean? None of the people we know want to hurt anyone. And I got the gift of desperation that day. It's crazy to think the day before, like I had pretty much given up, And well, what did happen is that guy that I called that I hated walked in about 15 minutes later. And I remember saying, Steve, I need help. And it's funny, I had called him before this. I don't remember what I said, but this is the first time in my life I ever asked another human being for help with anything. Anything. And I guess it was kind of the, football mentality, the way I was raised, don't show weakness. I was so scared my whole life. Even when I was 290 pounds and physically strong and had all these things, I was so afraid of someone finding out how broken I was. And I was ashamed of it. And it's amazing, that first time I ever asked anybody for help in my life, and it changed my world. And I started this journey in recovery, and I had tried before. I went to 15 rehabs and you name it. I went to thousands of meetings, but I sat in back and I didn't talk to people because I'm not better than them, but I'm not like them. And I started to go to meetings, and I started to get to know people in recovery, and I got accountable, and it's literally changed my life. Like, honestly, there's no other place I'd rather be than here tonight. Like, this is super important to me. Everything in my life that I can't imagine living without came out of my worst years. My 8 years of addiction and brought everything in my life that, like, if I think of living without it, I don't think I'd lose my mind. In 2002, I met someone, and she had 2 kids, and she moved in my house right when I gave up football, and she struggled with addiction, I struggled with addiction, and those kids lived the addiction. And I put those kids through stuff that no kid should be put through. That's the stuff, like, I never forget that. Those kids saw the police ambulance, I drove drunk with them, I try to never forget that stuff. But those 2 kids stayed in my life. Like, I thank God I met their mother, and
Me too.
like, yeah, and it's crazy because, like, those 2 kids' forgiveness and not giving up, absolutely changed me, the last, I'm coming up on 14 years, and I don't know, it's just been amazing. Like, this world of recovery, like, has absolutely changed me. The only people I really hang out with, the people in recovery, they're the most giving heart, except when they're struggling, but they will do anything for anyone at any time. I can tell you I wasn't getting phone calls from old teammates and people that knew I was struggling. It was the people in recovery that absolutely loved me before I even began to like myself, and they showed me a different way of life. And it's crazy, I met a gentleman in back with 50 years, and it just completely blew my mind, you know what I mean? A long time ago. I don't know, I'm going to wrap up in a second, but I'm just extremely grateful to be here. People in recovery, I love you guys. I love everyone here. I don't say that much, really, if ever. My wife knows that. Like, I have a problem with expressing myself still, so, like, if my wife looked pretty tonight, I tell her 3 days from now. I think it. The words just don't come out. but this is a great turnout. I love Kathy Leonard. She's my second Kathy. It's funny, I went to a school a couple months ago, and my wife's like my blanket, like a couple years ago, and if I don't have her with me, I kind of lose it. We're completely different, but Kathy Leonard came, and I think it was probably my best speech. I was really comfortable, so maybe it's the name Kathy, but I don't know. I hope you guys have a good night, and I'm extremely grateful to be here. And my name's Chris, I'm an alcoholic addict.